Happy Wednesday. Hey, friends. Hope you were doing so well. I missed you last week, but I had a little vacation. Hopefully, you are getting into summer as well and having a great start to, all things work and play as we get into Q2 and Q3. Big hi to Rich and Giacomo and John and Jeff. And it's just so good to see everybody. So, sending a big hello your way. I'm really super excited to dig in today. It's a little bit different than our normal sessions. So, as you know, our normal sessions are you and me, and we're talking with somebody else who we've invited to our table to steal all their secrets and get their tips and tricks and figure out what's going on with them and how we can use their knowledge to help our everyday life. We're going to get back to that next week with Mari. But until then, I wanted to share a little bit of goodness and takeaway that I've experienced, especially as we start to plop into summer. Why did I feel that today's session was really important? Because if you are like me and you maybe perhaps have tiny humans in your life, or you know people that have tiny humans in their life, school is out or school is about to be out, depending on where you are in the world. If you're in America, school gets out for summer in May and June, which means we're going to potentially be a little overwhelmed or maybe have a little bit more on our plate than normal because we have these tiny humans, and what are we going to do with them, and how are we going to continue to work? So because of that, I was like, you know what? We should really think about delegating. It's always important to delegate, but it's really important to focus on delegating, especially before you know that you're going to go through a hard season, a busy season, when you know you're going to have a lot going on with work, or you know you're going to have a lot going on in your personal life. It's really important as we think about how to deal as we come across these really tough times and things that we have going on. So before we dig into that, if you haven't already, say hi over in the chat. I promise that David and Deepak and Brian and Jim and Giacomo and Letizia are all really nice people, and they want to say hi and get to know you and who you are and where you're coming in from. So I promise the chat, pretty fun place to be. If you have any questions or comments as we're going through this content, please not only reach out in terms of asking me, but other people in the chat will also help. If you are listening on your favorite podcast network while you are washing the dishes or walking the dog or going for a run, we love you too. And I will happily answer any questions wherever you are getting this into your brain, and we'll answer anything. If you want to DM me on any platform, I will absolutely help you with that. So without further ado, let's get into the good stuff. I always love a good agenda because I'm type A and a little bit crazy. So I am putting that right here for you to check out. So meet Kim, boom, we already did that. I feel like the biggest question when it comes to delegating is really where to start. Where do we do that? So that's what we're going to dig into first. We're going to get into who to delegate to. That's also a big question I get. Like, yes, I have all this stuff to delegate, but who the heck is going to do it all? And then really giving those clear, crisp instructions so we know exactly what we're delegating, getting rid of kind of the scariest part, which is, if you're like me, maybe slightly a bit of a control freak, letting go and knowing that things might not get done by you, but are in the capable hands of somebody else. And it might not be exactly what you want it to look like in the end, but it's going to be close enough. And that's what counts. So just sort of a general question to everybody, Jan and Daniel and Liz, who joining us, and Jen, hey Jen, what kind of keeps you from delegating? I'm just sort of curious because I hear a lot of different answers from friends and colleagues and people who are saying like why they maybe delegate or don't delegate. So I'm just curious to hear from you, kind of what are some of the main reasons that stop you from delegating? So John says, trust, obviously that can be a big one. It really is, hard to trust somebody with something that you need to do. Or Liz is just saying like, bad planning. So what keeps you from delegating is just you didn't plan for it. Now you're overwhelmed. Now you have too many things on your to-do list. Now you just can't get to it. Shelby is probably something that happens to me quite a bit, which is just, it takes so long to explain it to you. Like it's easier for me to just, do it myself. Like, I'll do it myself. And Giacomo is probably the sweetest answer, of course, the nicest out of all of us, which is, I don't want to add any more work to other people's plate. Giacomo's the nice one because that's usually not my first thought. My normal first thought is like, oh my God, helping hands? Here's all the work that I need help with. So Giacomo gets the nice start of the day. But for the rest of us, it's a lot of, what we're all saying. It's, it's faster for me to do it. It's easier this way. Like kind of the ball is in motion. This is the way we've always done it. It's just easier for me this way. I can do it better. Or the one that I think stops most people also is just, I can't afford it. So I know that I need those extra set of hands, but paying somebody to help me do XYZ is just not part of the consideration set. So, and by the way, I should have said earlier, this goes for both work and personal life. And I think that this is true in both cases. And these tactics can work in both cases because who's to say that we just get overwhelmed at work? No one. Like who's to say we don't just get overwhelmed in our personal life? It happens. So these sort of tips and tricks go across both ways and can really help us, dig down and figure out where the blocks are and how we can get to them better. So sort of the warning signs that I've seen really pop up when it comes to, I'm talking to a friend or I'm talking to a colleague or I'm talking to someone and I'm thinking to myself like, you need to delegate. Like your plate overwhelmed, like not going to work, is when I talk to people that, don't have time to work out, don't have time for personal loved ones, don't have time for friends and family, not feeling inspired at work, just kind of drowning in these like menial tasks that are not really inspiring and not really kind of getting them out of bed in the morning. That is, another thing. Or to Britta's point, like it takes too long. And so you're just, I'll do it all myself. And then you feel exhausted. You get to the end of the day and because you've done it all yourself, you are absolutely exhausted and there is no room for a breath of anything. So when I hear these sorts of like ding, ding, dings in my head as I'm talking to someone, I'm like, you really might want to think about delegating in a way that is going to work best for you. So if you know that you're there or you know that you have accessed someone that is there, let's talk about where to start. So the easiest place to start, the place that I always love to start is what is swirling in my brain? Like what is going over and over and over that it's like, and then I have to get the groceries and then I have to do this proposal. I mean, guys, I can't show you everything on here, but like I have my to-do list separated into like personal stuff and work stuff. And sometimes it just gets out of control. And that is always my biggest first step. A lot of times all this stuff is swirling in my brain and you need to just get it out of your brain. So step one, exactly like I just showed you, my business partner, Abby, will kill me if I show you what's on our to-do list, but there's stuff on there. So get it out of your brain. And by the way, even the little stuff, like I'll just read this to you. I have like, call my friend Jenna, call my Aunt Sherry. Like there's any little thing that's going on in your brain that you're like, oh yeah, I really need to call my friend back. Or, oh yeah, I really need to text my friend about next Saturday's, barbecue. Write it down, even if it seems so small and silly, like, oh, of course I'm going to remember to call them back. No. Write it down, literally dump it all out of your brain, everything. Then once you have it all written down, star the tasks that only you can do. So in the example I just gave, call my friend for a catch up, only I can do that. I can't ask my husband to call my friend and catch up with her because that would be weird and odd. So star anything that you personally have to do, but then everything else, just don't touch it. Just only star the things that you would have to do. This involves things like a lot of times like medical appointments or going to those appointments, or maybe dealing with a bank or a lawyer or a personal relationship, something that you really can't give to somebody else. I know Jenna is like, oh my gosh, brain dumping helps me so much. I am the same way. It's just anything that you can get out of your brain. It just is super, super helpful. So start the things that only you can do. And then next, look at the things that are not starred. So the starred things are things that only you can do. Look at the things that are not starred and figure out who can help me with these things. And again, this can be personal or it can be work related. So if one of those things on your to-do list is pick up the laundry or pick up the dry cleaning or go to the post office or pick something up from the grocery store or get a birthday present for so-and-so's birthday next week, who else can help you with those things? So do you have a friend that's also going to the grocery store? Can somebody that lives in your house, whether that is a parent, whether that is a child, whether that is a spouse, whether that is a partner, can they go to the grocery store? Are they already on their way there? So figure out who around you can help with these things. Same thing with work. Is there a colleague? Is there your boss? Is there somebody else that can help you figure out how to get these tasks done? And really get creative, because a lot of times, you'll write down something and you'll go, oh, so-and-so can't do that. Let them try. Let them, you will surprise yourself. I'll use a personal example. There are times where I love my husband. I will give him tasks and I'll be like, oh, there is no way he's going to be able to do this because he doesn't know, the things we buy in the grocery store. He doesn't know this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden you actually give him the task and he does it and he comes home and I'm like, not half bad, not exactly how I would do it, but not half bad. So a lot of times I think people discount stuff before they even try. So I always say, give people an opportunity, let them try. I think that that's super, super important. So let's go to this big question, because I think this is one that always, always, always comes up, which is who do I give these tasks to? Who can these people be? And again, it's everybody that I just said. Always think about people that are in your household. Those are people that are going to be within easy access to you. So again, children, roommates, partner, parents, they're in under the same roof as you. That is really helpful. So those people are kind of again, my first line of defense, if you will, when we think about who we can delegate to. If those tasks do not have to be done physically, so again, go to the grocery store, pick up the dry cleaning, go to a client meeting, anything that can be done remotely or online, think about resources that do not have to be in person. So for example, Upwork, 99 Designs, LinkedIn Jobs, if you just need a freelancer for a 2-week period to help you design some PowerPoints or things that are on your plate that you just know it doesn't have to be you and you need help with it. And it just has to get done. It just has to get done, but it doesn't have to be you. So those are really helpful. If it has to be in person, but it doesn't have to be you. So it's not you going to the client meeting. It's not you talking to the bank or talking to a legal team. Then look for in-person resources. So if it is something like going to the grocery store, look at Uber Eats or something of the equivalent in your area that has a delivery mechanism. TaskRabbit I've used them multiple times when I needed help in person. So again, there's lots of resources based on where you are geographically, but look for those. They exist. And trust me, especially if you are near any sort of a university or a college town, there are tons of young people that are always looking for beer money. I joke, they are 22, they're looking for the beer and pizza money, you giving them a task and them running all around town and picking up XYZ or helping you out or clean something out, literally worth its weight in gold. So it's that's really an important one. I think a lot of people forgot about that. So, and again, if you were at work thinking about a teammate, an intern, or the one that I think shocks people the most is your boss. So why do I say your boss? A lot of times, and you know this as well as I do, we are all absorbed in our own stuff. Okay. So we might not even realize that our direct reports are drowning because we're in our own hurricane of crazy. So a lot of times, if you are overwhelmed, if you have a lot going on, if there's multiple things happening, your boss might not even know. Like they might not even know that you are super overwhelmed. So even just going to them and saying, here's all the things I'm working on for the sales meeting, for the marketing presentation, for the client meeting, like, can you help me delegate this or figure out who can take pieces of these puzzles? All of a sudden your boss is going to be like, yeah, I'll take a portion, or we'll give that to somebody else. Or again, look, it doesn't have to just be kind of people on the same level of you or, you know, below, like an intern. It could be people higher up than you. So going to your boss is one that I think is always really helpful. And I love Liz's questions like, is it okay to delegate to someone who isn't a direct report? Obviously, it depends on the organization you're at and it depends on how everything is set up. But in my opinion, absolutely. As long as you talk to either your boss about it or their boss about it, in my eyes, especially with a company or a team, everybody's headed towards the North Star, right? Everybody's trying to increase sales. Everybody's trying to make the marketing campaign a success. Everybody's trying to get more signups, or everybody's trying to get more reoccurring revenue, whatever it is. So anything that's going, it's like synergy, right? We are the sum of all the different parts. So anything that's going to help multiple parts, we're all moving forward. So as long as there's transparency with, you know, who that person is, and that maybe something that you're giving them isn't then overwhelming them or taking away from their direct job or what they're trying to do, I think absolutely this is super helpful, super critical, and just really helpful, I think. And I also love this question from Jeff, you know, what about an exchange, you know, free coaching and in exchange for a creative deck or a proposal? Absolutely. I think that this is also so important, especially across teams, whether you're within a company or, you know, freelancing or entrepreneurship. These exchanges are massive. So you can be helping somebody, even if it's not their prime task, that you can say, let me take that on. And in exchange, either I'll owe you one, or here's something that I'm also needing help with, maybe not at the exact same time. So yes, Jeff, I think that this is so helpful when you can say, what is something that takes me less time, but it takes somebody else a lot of time. So figure out what those skill sets are and how you can best leverage them and utilize them. Super, super key. How do we guarantee that when we do finally delegate something, that it's going to go well? And that, my friend, the answer to that question is instructions. And I don't mean any type of instructions, because a lot of times people are like, oh, Kim, I've tried delegating before. It went really badly. And, you know, I've read all the tips and tricks. I gave people deadlines. I, gave them what I needed them to do. And it didn't work. And I've been there. I have also myself tried delegating before, and it failed miserably. So, as someone who has been in your shoes and realized, wait a minute, I thought I was giving clear directions, or I thought that I was really figuring this out and being super detailed, but I wasn't. Here are some common mistakes that I made that you also might be making. And here are some ways that I got myself out of it. So, we all know these sort of like basic instructions for delegating. Like, yes, we have to give people clear deadlines. Absolutely, Kim, check. We have to give people deadlines. I got you. Here's another one that I think most people don't realize. I call it the one step ahead instructions. One step ahead instructions. So I'll tell you what that means. And then the last thing is the best way to reach you. This is what I actually think that people forget about the most when it comes to delegating. It's sort of, there used to be an infomercial, I forget what it was for, some sort of like slow cooker or something, but the motto, I can like hear it in my head from QVC, but it would be like, set it and forget it. I can't remember what that was, but it was like, set it and forget it. That was like the tagline. And I think sometimes when people think about delegating, they think that same thing, like, well, I've delegated, like I set it up and now I've forget it. Like I wiped my hands, I delegated it, done. Absolutely not. So clear deadlines. What does that mean? You have to be very specific with these deadlines. So a lot of people will say, oh, I really just need that marketing presentation by tomorrow. Oh, I really need that done by Friday. And what I always tell people and what I practice constantly in my work life, and it helps so much, is you give people the why. So for instance, I would say something like, can you get me the 15 slides that I need for the proposal by Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, because our meeting with the client is Wednesday morning and I need to practice doing that presentation all Tuesday night before we walk in there on Wednesday morning. So again, really be clear. Don't just say, oh, I need the 15 slides. We really need to like hurry that up, marketing team. No. I need the 15 slides by this certain point, and here's why. So super clear. As Jen said, don't just sketch it, paint the picture. So paint the picture exactly for what you're asking for and why you need it. That is really, really helpful, not only for you, but it isn't because you need to get clear on it, by the way, but it's really helpful the person that is getting that instruction. So they understand, okay, it is really important for me to get them that from Tuesday at 10 a.m. because if they're meeting with the client on Wednesday morning, yeah, they have to practice these slides. They can't just go in there blind having no idea what the slides say. So again, really, as Jen said, painting that clear picture. Now, what I call the one step ahead instructions. These are my favorite way to give instructions. So you don't just say, oh, by the way, I need you to take out the trash. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just going to tell, my son or my daughter or my parent or my spouse or my partner or my roommate, yeah, I know I'm supposed to take out the trash this week, but can you take it out? No. We are going to give one step ahead instructions. So that means we think about what we want done in this example, taking out the trash, but then we think one step ahead. So again, going back to really painting that picture. And instead we say, you're actually going to need to take both the trash and the recycling. And you know what? You're going to want to take it to the far curb where the neighbor's driveway is, because I noticed if you just put it in front of our driveway, it's a little hidden with our front bushes and they don't always remember to pick it up. So you really need to wheel it over to your neighbor's driveway. So again, one step ahead. So we're not just thinking kind of like what's right in front of us, the trash needs to go out, set it and forget it, blah, I'm on to the next. We're really thinking, okay, if the trash is going to go out, what are some things that might be important for this person to know? In this case, it needs to be taken right in front of the neighbors. And oh, by the way, the recycling needs to go with it. So one step ahead instructions are extremely important. The last thing, and I think this is what people really mess up on, honestly, the most, is you have to give people a best way to reach you. A lot of times people will say, oh, well, I gave them the work assignment and I told them it needed to be done Tuesday at 10 a.m. and they needed to get it to me Tuesday at 10 a.m. Well, what happens if on Monday at 5 o'clock, they're under the gun and they're on the last slide and they have a question? How are they getting in touch with you so that they can make sure that they hit your deadline? So I always say, give people the best way to reach you. In this case, I would say something like, if you have any questions, text me. I'm around all day except for 1 to 2 p.m. when I'll be driving. Again, I think a lot of people make the mistake of, oh, yeah, call me if you have any questions or email me if you have any questions. Of course, my alarm's going off. That's how you know that this is live. Hold on. Just when you try to put the phone across the room, it reminds you that you set an alarm. Anyway, thanks for hanging with me in there. Should have delegated that alarm out to myself at a later time. So again, back to really focusing on giving those clear instructions on the best way to reach you. I think a lot of people just say like, call me if you have questions or email me if you have questions. And then they don't necessarily let people into what their schedule is actually going to be. So do you have drop off? Do you have a doctor's appointment? Do you have a hard dinner date with your partner or your spouse? Like, figure out when you're not available and let people know, hey, you can reach me anytime, or you can reach me in the morning, or you can reach me in the afternoon, but only this way, or I'm going to be driving, so make sure you call me instead of email me. So be specific for the way that people can reach you. I think that that's like, again, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, where I'm just like, no. So let's talk about how we can keep avoiding mistakes, because again, we know the delegation is important. We know we probably should be doing more of it, but how do we get around those roadblocks, around those things that we're just like, no. So again, include all information. I always say when it comes to delegation, assumption is the enemy. My mom used to constantly tell me all the time that assuming things makes an ASS out of you and me, because that's how you spell assume, ASSUME. So if you've never heard that little catchphrase, now you have it as well, which is we don't assume things, because when we assume things is when it all goes wrong. So when we're assuming things, when we're not painting that clear picture, as Jen said, that's when it's all going to crap. So we really don't want to do that. And again, not having a check-in system, also big mistake to avoid, especially if you are giving someone a detailed task. So again, going back to that example I had at the 15 slides, I'm not saying you can't give somebody the assignment of do these 15 slides for me. I actually think that's a great thing for you to delegate. But what you might want to say is, hey, I'd like to do these 15 slides with you. I'd like you to help me out with these. Why don't you do 5 out of the 15? Then let's regroup after you do the 5, because they might do 5 and you realize, oh my gosh, you know what I never forgot to tell them? We're supposed to use the client's brand colors in the presentation, not our brand colors. Let's say you work at a company with its own standard brand colors, not our standard brand colors, but the company that we're pitching to, the client's brand colors. That might have slipped your mind in the initial, like, can you help me with these 15 slides? But if you only see 5 of them and you go, oof, you know what? I did forget to tell you something. They are supposed to be in a different color. That person can go, oh, great. Like, thank you for telling me. Let me, tackle this and do it differently. That person is going to be testing their patience. If they get through all 15 slides, think that they're doing so well, helping you out, all great, and then they deliver it to you, and then you go, oopsie doopsies. Yeah, that's all wrong. Yeah, I forgot to tell you that thing about the colors. So just save yourself. If it is a larger initiative, if it is something where you are giving someone a kind of rather big project, then check in with them. Check in with them to make sure that they are actually understanding what it is that you're asking for. That is huge. I want to make sure that we get some of these questions as well, because again, I know that everybody is contributing their answers, but I also want to contribute mine too. And these are such good questions. So Liz is asking, I really struggle with what tasks should be delegated. How do you know what is appropriate to delegate? This is probably going to be a slightly controversial take, but I'll just give you what my standard answers is. I would encourage everybody else to chime in with what they think. So we can spar a little bit. If you disagree, that's totally fine. But in my head, there is nothing that, given the right context, is inappropriate to delegate. So again, that's why I sort of divide it in my mind between delegated work tasks versus delegating personal tasks. So I think that anything can be delegated. So I probably wouldn't give a work task to somebody that lives in my household, right? I'm going to give a work task to somebody that I work with, or maybe it's a colleague that I used to work with that I think could help me with something. Maybe it's a freelance capacity, or maybe it's just something that they're a friend and I'm kind of phoning a friend in a pinch and asking for help. But it's kind of more in a work sense. Or if it's in my personal life, again, friend, family member, spouse, partner, somebody that lives in the house with you, reaching out to them. So, but again, in my eyes, man, there is really, I think, no limit on what you can delegate and what's appropriate. Now, what I do think is inappropriate is when we mix those things. So this is a true story. I will not reveal the names, but I was I only had 2 corporate jobs. So you could probably figure this out if you really wanted to. But at one of my corporate jobs, I was a marketing coordinator, and and there were other marketing coordinators at this company. And one of the marketing coordinators and I were like shoving food in our mouth, I guess you could call it lunch, by the little microwave at work, because, who has time to sit down and eat a meal? You're just kind of like shoving it and going on. And I said, well, why are you so busy? Like, you were here late last night. Like, what have you been working on? And she said, I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. It's not funny. She said, oh my gosh, I've just been so overwhelmed. My boss has me planning her twins' birthday party. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, she kind of asked if I was available to help. And I assumed, going back to that word assume, I assumed it had something to do with work, because why would my boss come and say like, hey, do you have extra time for like an extra assignment? You're thinking like, oh, maybe I'm going to get put on some special project. And she was like, oh yeah, I have time for your extra project. And it was like, yeah, my 8-year-old twins, like, how do we get ponies in Manhattan? And and this poor girl was spending like hours and hours figuring out this 8-year-old twin birthday party. And so that example always to me was like, yeah, that's a no. So when we think about things that are like appropriate and inappropriate to delegate, I think if you're in a work setting, you can't be delegating like personal tasks. And maybe this is a New York City thing, because I actually have friends that are in multiple industries that have experienced, like, I have friends that had to go pick up like dry cleaning for their bosses, or coffee is kind of like a fine one. People are like, oh, you're on your way. Can you get me a coffee? Okay. If they pay you back, maybe that's fine. But I think when you start delegating like personal tasks in the workspace, to me, that's a no. But I think you can delegate personal tasks in a personal space, and you can delegate work tasks in a workspace. Jim is like, how do we get ponies in Manhattan? Yeah, I have no retort to that, other than this was a long time ago. And I hope that person is no longer doing that with their assistants and coordinators, because as someone who was once that role, nobody wants to plan your kid's birthday party. I don't even think you want to plan your kid's birthday party, if we're all being honest here. So definitely other people do not as well. So that is my answer to that, Liz. But again, everybody can chime in and maybe they have a different opinion than me. Giacomo is asking, what are the best tips if you have to delegate and you have an executive position? And then what are the best tips to delegate if you are new to the company? So my experience with this has been, the longer you are, it actually is twofold. Sometimes the longer somebody is at a company, the more ingrained you are with like the systems or maybe the software that you use or whatnot, and you're actually less inclined to delegate. Because again, going back to our other excuses, it's like, well, it's just faster. Oh, I've worked here for 5 years. I'm either at an executive level or a senior level. Like, it's just faster for me to do that. And the way that I always ask people to think about that is, are you doing a disservice to other people on your team? So the only way that people are going to get better, that people are going to grow, that people are going to expand their learning is if you give them a chance. And nothing is worse. I had this experience as well, where I could see that my boss was very, very busy, staying late for hours and hours, like after 5 o'clock. And I can remember I almost felt guilty going home at 6 p.m. because I'd be like, well, you're obviously doing a ton of work. Like, is there anything I can help with? And I can remember at the time my boss being like, oh, no, like, I'm just going to do it myself. And one, it kind of made me think like, well, what, you don't think I can help? Like, it actually, instead of making me feel closer to her, it made me feel like, well, what, like, you don't think that I could try, or I could do like a little bit of it, or, and then the second thing I always say is, and you might have experienced this as well, is sometimes it is easier to edit than to start with a blank page. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Sometimes it is easier to edit than it is to start with a blank page. So if you are at a senior level and you think, oh, I can't delegate this out because only I can do this. And oh, if I ask them to write the sales report, it's going to be crap. It might be crap. You might delegate it out and you might be like, wow, I get this thing back and it is actually not as expected, not great. And I would be lying to you if I said that like, oh, magically it's going to come back great. It probably won't. In fact, it definitely won't. But at least you have the bones of it done. At least you can edit a few words or rewrite a few sentences or change a few paragraphs. It is always, always, always easier to edit or to start something with some semblance of something that is correct than to start with a blank page and do it all yourself. So absolutely every time it's worth it. It's worth it for them because as a senior executive or on an executive team, you want people to learn, because the more you give them chances to learn, the more you delegate, and then they actually do it correctly. So that's a good one. If you are new to a company and you are feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling like, oh, I want to delegate or I need help with this, I literally want you to take this advice and just like store it somewhere in your mental brain. Please, 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 please tell your senior executive, whoever you are reporting to. Why do I say that? Because especially if you are new to a company, a lot of times people don't know. Maybe an executive position came open, maybe an assistant position came open, maybe they just wrote the job description and nobody has ever held that role before, and they put 16 bullet points in the job description. And then you in there and you're actually doing it and you're like, man, these people are nuts because they're asking me to do 16 bullet points when in reality, I can do maybe 10 of these. And they just don't know, or maybe the person that was doing the job before you, maybe that's the reason they left, is because they were doing over what their job was. This is something actually that I used to see all the time, especially at like the assistant or coordinator or junior executive level. A lot of times people were not only doing their job description, but I joke they were doing like their job and a half. So you're eager and you're like new to a company. So you're like, whoa, like I'll do all the things. And a lot of times then what happens is burnout. You can't do all the things. It doesn't help. So really, I think as much as possible, telling someone, whoever is there that hired you, like, hey, white flag, drowning over here, needing help with some of these things is really, really important. I think that that's just super helpful, super helpful. And I think also it's helpful for you to realize what your actual capacity is, especially if you're new to a company, especially if it's a new job, because as Jeff says, a lot of times HR is disconnected from what the actual role is. So again, you can write beautiful job descriptions all day long. You can write glorious bullet points and all the things, but a lot of times what you're actually doing is different than your job description. So as Giacomo is saying, I do the job of like 4 departments. So that is a lot of us where you're like, yeah, technically, I think the job I got hired for was like 6 bullet points. And if I'm looking at it, yeah, I'm definitely doing like 10 bullet points. So I think that that is really sort of a red flag to watch out for, or something that you should really think about in a big way. So I also think that I'm just reading. Did you get the ponies? I don't think she ever did get the ponies for what it's worth. I don't think you can get ponies in Manhattan. I just don't think that's like a possibility. I also just tried to stay so clear of her because probably similar to Giacomo, I was at the risk of saying like, I'll help you because I hate seeing people struggle. And I didn't want to figure out how to get ponies in Manhattan. So I was like, I finished that lunch with her. And I remember thinking like, do not go near her for the rest of the week, or else all of a sudden it'll be like, sure, I'll help you figure it out. And I did not want to help her figure that out. So I don't think they ever got the ponies, and I don't know what they did instead. Cause I was just like, oh no. But again, delegating, super, super important. I think, especially like in the example I just gave, those of us who are so willing to help, which is, by the way, a great quality. We love that. We love the helpers out there that are, constantly raising their hand, like, I'll help with the sales meeting prep, or I'll bake the cake for the church meeting, or I'll figure out the school safety patrol trip, or, whatever it is. We're volunteering and raising our hands in all aspects of life, work, family, personal, but it's really figuring out when you see that perhaps you've raised your hand a bit too much, perhaps you have a bit too many things on that to-do list, really getting clear on how do we delegate? What does that look like? Who can we delegate to? How can we delegate? And more importantly, what is it going to take for that to get done and done well? So again, I have a bunch more tips and kind of tricks on this. So I actually have an entire LinkedIn Learning nano course kind of covering all about this. So I will drop a link in the chat, or if you are watching this in person, you can scan this QR code and we'll put it in the show notes. But I have more tips on delegating that I have learned as I try to delegate and sometimes miserably fail. But more now than not, I succeed because I have had so many failures, or I've listened to mini workshops or podcast episodes like this where I learn from other people's mistakes, which is all about what we do here, because we're all about copying the homework as much as possible. So if you would like to keep copying my homework, keep learning from me, I would love that. I have a ton of courses on LinkedIn Learning. And then, of course, we meet here every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you are like me and you are super, super calendar oriented and you are type A and you like to know what's going on at all times, I am with you. And I also like that. So you can head over to getcoffeewithkim.com and we will send you a calendar invite for all of our future sessions, along with who we're going to be talking to. So like for next week, when we are talking to Maury, you can stalk Maury a little bit, as we all do before we meet with someone. And don't say you don't stalk people, because I know you do. So you can stalk him a little bit before we meet with him, and you can come with any questions or comments or concerns or things that you want to copy his homework on and learn from him as much as possible. One last question before we go is, do you think AI can help in all of this? I absolutely think that AI can help, especially with how much that we've learned when it comes to ChatGPT and ChatGPT 4. I highly encourage you, if you haven't already, to watch. A couple of weeks ago, we talked to Jake Dunlap. He taught me so much about ChatGPT. I have been using it like crazy ever since that session with him and I. It was just really helpful for me. And again, so far, I have used it primarily for my personal life, which I think is the opposite of most people. Most people find that ChatGPT and these AI interfaces are really good for work stuff as well. And they are, but honestly, I have found it to be really helpful with my personal tasks and things that I have to do and things that I have to organize. And I think a feature that it's also really helpful to know on a lot of these AI platforms is there is a talk function. So if you are like me and you are driving or you're taking a walk, or I'll just use an example for real life, maybe it will help you guys as well, is a lot of times I find that when I am walking or I am driving in the car, I think of a lot of things like, oh yeah, I got to call that person, or oh yeah, I really need to like look that up, or oh, I wanted to listen to that podcast. I got to look up what episode number that was. And a lot of times if I'm driving or if I'm walking, I don't have a pen and paper with me. I don't necessarily have an easy way to type. So a lot of these platforms will have an audio function. So I will actually brain dump in an oral sense. So I will talk to the ChatGPT like it's my friend. And I will say, hey, I literally will say this. Hi, ChatGPT. I always talk to it like it's a person because you never know when these things are coming for us. So I say, hi, ChatGPT. I'm on a walk. I really, literally, that's how I talk to it. I really want to organize my to-do list. Can I just tell you a bunch of stuff and you number things and make it look nice? And that way, when I get home, it will be easy for me to copy and paste. And of course, the ChatGPT answers me like it's my friend. And it says, yes, Kim, tell me all the tasks that you need. And then I will literally just start brain dumping as I'm walking. I'm like, well, I really need to go to the grocery store and we're out of apples and I need to call my mom. Did I call my friend back? And I'm literally like just everything that's in my head, I'm just saying out loud. People who are also walking probably look at me like I'm nuts. But what the ChatGPT platform does is it then indeed does make a concise to-do list for me, and it numbers it for me, and it's very pretty, and it just gets everything that's out of my brain and into a solid form. So I don't know if Samir is saying if you're kind to ChatGPT, you get better results. I don't know if that's true, but I'm certainly doing all my please and thank yous, all my P's and Q's when it comes to those little platforms. So that is one way that has really helped me, especially with delegating, because again, that brain dumping process, as an example, is something that a lot of times happens for me when I'm in motion or in movement. I'm not necessarily sitting down with a paper and pen. So hopefully this has been really helpful for you. I know it's been helpful for me to kind of think down and get into the nitty gritty and the tactics of how exactly we can help ourselves when things become a little bit much. Like I said, summer is about to hit. If it is your busy season with work, or it's your busy season with your tiny humans, or it is your busy season as we hustle into Q3 and Q4 in the back of the year, I feel you. I'm right there with you. So I think figuring out ways that we can delegate and ask for that help and figure out how we can make ourselves better is going to really just be a game changer for all of us. So thank you so, so much. I know there's a million places that you could have been today, but you took time to have lunch or tea or coffee or wine with me. And that means the world to me. As I said, you can head over to getcoffeewithkim.com and learn all about Mari and the rest of our sessions as we come up in June and July. I would absolutely love to see you there. If you have any other questions about delegating or anything that we talked about today, I would love to hear from you. You can hit me up on any social media channel. And if you had to leave early, or you have a friend that you kind of want to hint that maybe they should start delegating, you can send them this in podcast form on any of your favorite podcast networks. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, etc. You can just search Get Coffee with Kim and we will be there. So thank you so much to Juan and Jen and Liz and Samir and Shelby and Giacomo and John, and just this was Britta, and it was so great and so fun to spend this time with you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of the week. Bye.